Preparing. Okay, there we go. Hello and welcome, guys, to Cyber Diaries, episode number 12. We have another amazing and exciting guest. We have Rob from Red Helix. So thank you for coming along to talk to us, Rob, today.
No worries.
Brilliant. So first of all, I guess, very quickly, Rob, obviously I only found out a couple of years ago about Red Helix, through some of the amazing events that you guys been doing, but some of our probably, I guess, guests who are not familiar with Red Helix. If you can just kind of give a brief overview, what does Red Helix do, and and how you guys are helping solve some of the cybersecurity challenges for your clients, during with your company.
Yep, sure. I mean, we've been around for 40 years in one guise or another. We changed the name of the company, which was Phoenix Datacom, to Red Helix 2.5 years ago. At the same time as that, we started looking at what we were doing and how we were doing it and how we could better it. So we started life off many years ago as a value-added reseller in the test and measurement space, and we've progressed over the years. So that was 40 years ago. So we went into their network performance, network monitoring, network visibility. About 15 years ago, we went into cybersecurity. As the technology grew, our customers sort of wanted those products. And our ethos has always been the same over those 40 years. It's finding the best products we can find across the world and taking those to our customers. We then sort of spin that on its head and say, well, we use those products to offer services. So we find we have two main customer bases. There's the massive big organizations who have their own staff, have their own SOC teams, and they just want to buy technology from us. And then there's the mid-market in the UK, which is pretty underserviced. We found that they had exactly the same problems as the big organizations, but they didn't have either the staff, the resources, or the skill set, or the will to run those technologies themselves. So they wanted them as managed services. So what we've done is take all our knowledge and our experience from years of providing technology to large organizations, and then brought that skill set down into the mid-market, and then say wrap them as a managed service. And we find our customers, particularly in the mid-market, really appreciate that, because it means we can take all that knowledge which they haven't got, we can take our resources which they haven't got, but actually give them the same solutions as the big organizations are running.
Yeah, I think it's a very important point you touched on, because the more I talk to various businesses, especially I guess on a smaller business size, I keep discovering, for example, there's organizations, obviously they've been given advice, say buy E5, but then leveraging E5 to its full capability and actually deploying it across the organization is a whole completely different question. Because I even met people who had been handed in security responsibility, say from IT, and it says, "Oh, I bought this thing E5. We don't know what to do with it." So I guess layering that expertise and guidance as a service to smaller businesses, I guess, is very crucial nowadays.
Exactly. Yeah, it's amazing. We see companies of all shapes and sizes, say from very large multinational retail organizations, mobile carriers, national carriers, etc. And we see very small companies as well. And they say they all have the same problems. They just have different resources and different budgets to try and solve those problems. More often than not, the smaller the organization, it's the IT manager who becomes the security manager. And those two roles are very different. I used to see a cartoon kicking around the industry. It was probably a Dilbert cartoon, where in the morning he was a network manager, so went around connecting everything up, and in the afternoon he was the security manager and went around disconnecting everything. And if you're the same person doing that role, it can get very confusing.
Yeah, and how do you? I just wanted to actually pick up something you mentioned, and I see a lot of that happening as well. So I've been helping a few companies as well who are building their propositions, because I've designed and built before security operation centers. But I think one of the problems that I see sometimes in industry as well, where I see often, or a lack of, is that people or organizations decide, let's buy SOC or outsource SOC. We do a project, we turn it on, and it's just left there to be. And the problem is, like, as I say, I was helping organizations who did, a quite in-depth red teaming, and obviously they tested it and they breached one of their financial applications, but SOC didn't discover anything. Because I always say, it's as with everything, you can't just buy SOC and expect it's going to be feasible in the next 6 months when things change. So it has to be continuously be evaluated, matured, tested its capabilities to make sure that, how does it work? How do you find as well? Because obviously I assume, as you say, there isn't expertise, especially in the SMB type of market. So how do you guys find that communication and working with people who might not have skills to continuously mature that sort of service?
We find communications with organizations very, very important, which sounds a silly statement, sounds obvious. But we see it at all levels of the organization that the communication skills have to be improved on every level. An example of that, I was speaking to a CISO of a large organization a few weeks ago, and he said when he took over the job, he spoke to the guy who was leaving. He says, "Oh, I can't get anywhere with the board. They won't listen to me. They won't do anything. I tried to spend this, try to do this, and I just get denied all the time." And what he realized was it wasn't a problem with the board not wanting to spend money. It was a problem with the board not understanding what the CISO was asking them to do, because he wasn't relating the problem to in their language. If you think of a board, they understand the business that they're running, and to a lot of them, cybersecurity is just a cost. It's something they've been told they've got to do. They don't know why. They don't know the benefit of it. So what this new CISO did was explain the problem in terms they understood. And once he did that, they could see what the business relevance was to the issues. And so suddenly they became aware of the problem, they understood the problem, and they could see the benefit of solving the problem. And it's the same when we're speaking to engineers, to mid-level management, whatever, is you've got to make it the conversation relevant to them. So if you're talking to someone who is, for 15 years been a network manager and suddenly been thrown in front of the cybersecurity bus, so we say, then you've got to tone the conversation and the discussions and to a way they understand the conversation, and that's what I think makes Red Helix quite nice to work for, because we have that skill set. Like I said, from our history of 40 years. We've been through test and measurement, we've been through network performance, we've been through network visibility, we've been through cybersecurity, so we can pick up bits of knowledge and bits of information and share that out at that level. And we find then you start getting a two-way conversation. It's not just in its bluntest form, a salesman turn up saying, here's a shiny bit of kit, will you buy it? Like, we understand the problem, we see your pain. This is a solution which will help you get through that pain point because of X, Y, and Z. So you have a much more sort of consultative conversation rather than just buy the next bit of shiny tin because a data sheet says it will solve all my problems.
I think it's very important. It's probably an unpopular opinion, but I always share the very similar sentiment, and I always say to people, especially to senior security leaders, is that the problem is that you hear them often complaining that board is not giving me budget, board is not doing this, but always say to me, it's not the audience problem, it's the communicator's problem. And if you can't, you have to think and understand, and that's why sometimes you have to go outside and actually build. There's obviously various materials about how you can build different personas, how do you approach various people to communicate. I think we spoke with Keith Price, who's a CISO from National Highways as well. He talked a lot about communication and how he measures his effectiveness through, making sure that people just invite you over various, departments. So make sure that you're obviously getting support. And even from, like, for example, I've done quite a couple of years now with mentoring of junior talents as well. And I always say one of the first lessons I teach is start presenting as early as possible, because even at, lower levels, I always say, unless you can get influence or buy-in into your decision, your idea, however bright it might be, might not reach a day of light if you can't get others on the same journey with you. So I think that's a very important lesson. I just wanted to segue into obviously, we talk about CISOs and various others. Obviously, when you're talking about, value-added resellers or as you do guys, professional services, you got some people with some more interesting roles. Obviously, Rob, your role is technology director. So I guess if you can just talk a bit about, what does that entail? I always like to explore, I talked with a few episodes with founders of cybersecurity companies. We always want to highlight, how there's various pathways into cybersecurity. There's various roles. There's obviously various interesting careers that you can make outside of just, normal CISO or SOC manager or stuff like that.
So I, as technology manager, or sorry, technology director, my whole role really is looking for products and services which I believe are the best for our customers or our prospective customers. By that, what I mean is we don't sign up every vendor who knocks on our door and says, will you offer our services? Will you sell product? 9 times out of 10, we say no. We do a lot of research. I go to a lot of conferences. I speak to vendors every day. I look at all the startups, and I then look at how their technologies would work into our ecosystem. One thing we think, which is really important, is integration of security tools. For years now, if you speak to SOC managers, they'll say the biggest pain of their days is they've got 50 tools, and if one of them's quite great, but they're normally all shouting to try and get the attention of the SOC staff. The poor sort of junior SOC analyst is getting bombarded with 1,000 events a day, which you can't possibly give attention to. So when I look at selecting products for our portfolio or technologies for our portfolio, is I look at how we can integrate them into what we've got already. I don't like too much internal competition. By that, what I mean, if we've got 6 tools which all do the same thing, we end up giving a very confused message to our customers saying, yeah, we understand your pain, we've looked at your problem, we thought about what you want, and you can buy any of these 6 things, and they're all great. Because every product's great in its own sort of sphere of expertise. So we like to make sure that the products we take to our customers sort of fit into our ecosystem, so we don't get just another shiny box given another set of alarms to an already crowded SOC. Yeah. And so I spend my days testing products, looking at products, making sure they do what they say on the tin. It's amazing what data sheets say to what products do. There is a somewhat sort of gap. It's getting better, by the way. It used to be amazing what data sheets got away with. I think those days have stopped, thankfully. But we use our experience as test and measurement from 40 years ago to really hammer products and technologies we look at to make sure they fit our customers. Now that said, we might find some products which are really good at the sort of the deep end of the market, the massive enterprises, the banks, the government agencies, and they might not fit as well into the small mid-market business. So again, we then pick different solutions to meet those different market spaces. The technology is the same. It just might be a different way of proposing the sale or using the service, and different integrations into different SOCs, etc.
Yeah, I think it's similar. Sometimes, before you get in, I guess, into the weeds, sometimes it's hard to understand like why somebody creates another cloud security platform trying to compete with Wiz, because Wiz is just taking everyone. But then on the flip side, as you say, talking with smaller organizations, some of them there's no chance they can afford Wiz. So there are obviously companies who are entering that mid-market level where they maybe have 80% of technology, but if their cost is 10 times less, then obviously that's much easier barrier to entry for them to go to that mid-market. So yeah, it's definitely important. I guess I wanted to pick up, Rob, as well. We talked about, tools. There's obviously a wave of now companies that doing acquisitions and sort of going towards platform route. So what's your thoughts, platform versus best of breed? Because there's various things obviously happening with obviously Cisco, what they bought. There's obviously been stuff happening with Wiz and some of the other platforms they're trying to buy, and then it fell through. But obviously, a Palo Alto as well is, buying stuff. So how do you view that shaping?
So this platform versus portfolio, I think, is what Gartner called it probably about 6 years ago now. Once that paper came out, we saw a massive acquisition sort of wave of all the big companies buying little companies, so they could be a platform. What we saw during that period was, yes, they brought lots of technology and they brought lots of small companies. Whether they integrated them very well or at all is up for debate. So we kind of we took a step back and said, okay, how can we tackle this problem or solve this problem? And what we decided, it goes back to the integration conversation we had, is a platform is a bunch of products integrated really, really well. Okay. So what we offer is a platform, our cybersecurity platform. Now we have the choice of going to any product in the world and deciding if we want to integrate it into our ecosystem. Yeah. So we believe our solution or our methodology is better than the acquisition method, because if you're Cisco and you buy company X, then the only thing you integrate is with company X. Now that may be great for some customers, not others. So we still believe that platform message, which is platform over portfolio, but we're not restricted to whatever products or acquisitions we've made. We partner with lots of different companies, lots of different vendors to bring those into our ecosystem. And like I said, we might use different products for the different size of market customers. So yeah, I fully support the platform mythology, but whether trusting a Cisco or whoever to do the acquisition and get the right products, for me is a slightly different story. So yeah, but we saw that happening overnight. The second that Gartner made that paper or released that paper, the acquisitions went through the roof. And the other thing I see, which annoys me in the market space, is a lot of security startups are brilliant. They have a great idea, but their whole remit is to get to acquisition. Now they don't have a long-term plan. Their plan is make a lot of noise, look good, look shiny, and then find someone to buy them, and then move on and do another one. Which I don't think is great for the industry, because the ball starts rolling with that startup. They've got a lot of interest, a lot of intelligence, a lot of great ideas, and when they then get brought by the big organization, a lot of the staff leave. They move on and do another startup. So that great technology, that great product gets somewhat stunted in the big conglomerate of these big platform companies.
Yeah, I see that happening a lot, and I always wondered why. But there's one great book, and I'm really big fan of Ross Haliluk. I don't know if you heard about. There's a new book that he published called Cyber for Builders. So it's a great book because being a CISO myself, and I think there's loads of CISOs who probably have a vision or ideas to build maybe a product or build a cybersecurity company, but unless you've been in those circles, you have no clue how this whole ecosystem works. And as you mentioned, like for example, startups, I think the big problem is that some of these startups are driven by venture capital companies, and venture capital companies sole goal is to get return on the investment, and therefore that's why that product is only driven towards IPO. It's not necessarily the company's fault, but it's the investors' fault, because they will push money and give you marketing to do whatever you want, but we need to reach an IPO. And I think in some ways obviously it depends where you end up, because we know big companies, for example, as well, I seen, we talked a bit about platform. There's some great companies who are been acquired, but if once they're acquired, they've been integrated, and if there is no R&D happening, that product, however amazing it might have been, a couple of years down the line, it becomes nothing.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to understand the ecosystem, but it's also important to, I guess, share and discuss and see how this, going to change. I guess segueing into another really important conversation, and I guess, and I really admire for what Red Helix is doing currently is, how do you see the impact of, community collaboration in cybersecurity through, relationship building and events can help a whole industry move forward.
Yeah, it's interesting. We've been doing events for a long time. And we don't do the typical event where we get all our customers in a room and try and sell to them. That's been done and dusted years ago, and it doesn't work. We make all our events educational. We publish what we're going to talk about, and it is a discussion. We try not to get me or one of my other colleagues, up in front of the audience for 2 hours just lecturing at people, because again, we can do that in our offices. So we like to make it conversational. We like to make a discussion. And yeah, we have normally your event, there's a fun element of the event, like we did Porsche World. So there's driving fast cars, which is great fun for everybody. But we also program in quite a bit of like, not free time, but downtime during that session. And what we find is we use those sessions to just get the customers to talk to each other, because we're all in the same boat. We're all struggling to keep up with the latest threat and understand the latest technology. And quite often we find, once we get customers out of their work environment, so they're not getting the day-to-day distractions, they start talking, and they suddenly realize that the problem they're having is exactly the same as someone else had 2 years ago or a year ago, and they start sharing ideas. And that is really beneficial, not just for the person who's learning the new solution and getting the ideas, but it just reinforces this kind of trust between organizations and between staff and between colleagues. And suddenly you'll find that a problem you thought you had, which you've been scratching the back of your head for the last 2 weeks over, actually, yeah, I now know, just having an outside conversation, you're not giving away any company secrets, you're not disclosing anything, but just something you haven't thought of before suddenly kicks in. And we find every time we run our events, yes, we do the organized bit, yes, we do the fun bit of driving fast cars or making recipes or whatever. But that networking bit in the middle is where most people get the most value, and what's really encouraging is quite often we get people who don't want to come for the fun bit. They don't want to drive the cars or whatever. They just want to come for that networking bit, because that's where they get the value out of it. And what we try to do as well is not restrict the customers just to one market sector. So then we can cross-pollinate ideas from different sectors. And we find that amazing. I love listening to those conversations, just going around the table, where someone's got a solution which in that sector was obvious, but in a different sector, no one had thought of doing it that way before. And you can cross-pollinate that way, and you get some great answers.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's very important. I think especially, touching on sales, I think I've been arguing with salespeople last few months, putting various kind of posts, but I think it's very important sometimes, because it's really disheartening sometimes see, the old school sales tactics where people or bosses are tracking vanity metrics, asking people to send 10 emails, like thinking, oh, I received 10 emails and 11th definitely is going to convert me into a buyer. No, I think it's people sometimes forget, and especially now in CISO, I've got so many CISO networks on WhatsApp, there's specific networks where people share ideas, ask about products, people talk. So you pestering someone, it creates a perception, that you don't want to talk to that company. And as you say, I love those companies, who fostering community spirit, collaboration. Collaboration, I think, is a key point, is, as you say, it doesn't. Yes, I understand organizations need, everyone understands we need to make money through sales, but fostering collaboration, bringing people together, as you say, sometimes even it's not only, sometimes you go to a conference and it's very environment where you just sit and people talk at you. You get very limited chance to actually network, and especially, cybersecurity people normally are quite introverted. It's hard to approach someone. So bringing that environment a notch down in a bit more relaxed environment and get people to build relationships, find out how people are solving specific problems. And then, sometimes an idea is born where, oh, by the way, Red Helix is a great company and they do this, they might help me with that. And then we can, chat about that. But instead of, it's always in your face, buy, buy, buy. And I think it's, yeah, it can become very problematic.
And the whole industry has, for ever since the creation of cybersecurity, we've always pushed the what I call the FUD, the fear, uncertainty, and doubt message to our customers, which I hate. It's easy to scare people, and tell them the world's, it's all going to be, it's all going to go to hell in a handcart, and unless you buy my new shiny product, which will solve everything for you, obviously. And I think it's important when we speak to our customers that actually we tell them the good news. We tell them it's not all scary. I was at the Cyber UK conference last week for a couple of days, and it was refreshing. One of the speakers there stood up and said, right, I'm going to tell you, cybersecurity is not hard. It's complex, but it's not hard. He said, we know how to detect vulnerabilities. We know, the list of IOCs which the threat actors and the hackers leave behind them. We have vast database of threat intelligence. We have organizations who specialize in infiltrating the dark web to give us early warnings, yeah? And yet we're still being breached. Yeah. It's not necessarily a technical problem or a technology problem. We've got technology to help us. It's how we use that technology and what we use that technology for, which is causing us the problems. And that goes with our messaging of not scaring everybody, and not just ramming products down their throat. Is give a not a good news message, but a balanced message to everybody.
Yeah, I think it becomes an education piece, even the simple things. I think, like, even I talk, in my organization sometimes that, if you take a legacy point of view, security or security department's always been departments of no and departments of scaring and telling people off.
Mm.
And that breeds a certain sort of fear and a certain sort of detachment. And it's very hard becomes to collaborate across the organization if you become someone who's always, you know, scaring people with phishing exercises. And especially, I even made a post and which I was really surprised that some of the reaction of some of security folks where, I said it's not okay in your organization if you do a phishing exercise and you include things like Excel file with saying salary increases, because you are baiting people. And even though I understand you are testing them, but it's just going to upset so many people. So why would you take a route where you're going to upset a lot of people? And I think that's the real change in organizations that we need to make, is about the cultural shift into not saying no, saying yes to people, but these are the security requirements, and actually collaborating and trying to find the solution that works for both sides. And I think that's very important message that you need to do these days.
100%. It is like you say, I see it, I won't say every day, but daily, I see, say, people doing phishing attacks just like you described there. And yeah, we're really shocked. We've got 90% of the customer of our colleagues open this email. Well, yeah, well, no surprise really, is there?
Yeah.
Likewise, we can talk about the marvelous technology we all love to get deep and dirty into. But I still see companies not using two-factor authentication. I still see companies not with a good password policy, not using password lockers, and then getting really annoyed when all their users use the same password on 20 systems. It's like, well, what they're going to do, if you're not giving them a password locker and you're not telling them to write, you tell them not to write it down on a post-it note, they're going to use the same one because you can't remember 20 different passwords. At least I can't.
Yeah.
So there's all these little things which we could do which really improve your security posture. And it amazes me that both big and small organizations still don't really do those simple things.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I don't remember where there was somewhere statistic, like even even some simple, go on a simple journey as cyber essentials. There's a few key simple technological controls that MFA patching and some of the very very simple things that can improve your security by, I don't remember the exact percentages, but it's tremendously how much threats they can stop. Viewing on that similar kind of a hat, what kind of cybersecurity threats that you see have emerged recently, and how are Red Helix, or how you are guys shaping services to address that?
Yeah, so I see two things which sort of really sort of interest me at the moment. What one is the convergence of IT and OT, so information technology and operation technology. For years they've been quite separate to each other, and then slowly they've been colliding. The invent of IoT kind of joined those two boxes or those two circles together. So and what I find interesting is watching how IT companies or IT cybersecurity companies trying to get into the OT market, and not necessarily understanding the difference between IT, IoT, and OT. You know, fundamentally, they feel like they should be the same thing. There's the same risks, the same vulnerabilities, and the same attack vectors, and the same sort of disruption. But when you get down into those technologies, you know, someone once told me, I'm trying to remember what it was. You know, an IT breach loses data, an OT breach loses lives.
Yeah.
You know, and then he suddenly realized that, yeah, you know, from an IT perspective, I'm protecting my data, I'm making sure it's where I think it is. My only people I authorize have access to it, and no one can change the data without me knowing about it. Whereas an OT environment, it's all about resilience. It's keeping the lights on. It's keeping, you know, the pumps running in a waterworks. You know, I might have a reservoir full of clean water, but if the pumps aren't running, there's no water coming out the taps. It's a very different attack and a very different disruption. And what we're doing is to make sure that when we look at our portfolio, we look for vendors and technologies which were born in the OT space, to protect our OT customers, rather than just hoping that a very effective IT tool can move into the OT space and work just as well and just as effectively, because I think they have different mindsets. I think that's interesting. And then, you know, we can't have a discussion about futures without talking about quantum. You know, again, at the conference I was at last week, there was probably, you know, 30% of the conversation was saying, you know, at the moment, you know, all our encryption, you know, we trust our encryption. It's all, you know, be it RSA, Diffie-Hellman, elliptic curve, you know, it's all going to have a problem when quantum compute is really up and running. You know, a maths problem which you know would take classic computers, you know, 1,000 years, 10,000 years, 100,000 years to break the encryption. Quantum compute can do in 4 hours. Well, suddenly, you know, everything which touches our lives, you know, be it bank accounts, be it everything, you know, is being protected by encryption, which suddenly can be broken in 4 hours. That has a massive impact on us. So we're starting to see, you know, the term that everybody's using is post-quantum cryptography, PQC, and we're starting to see different types of encryption technologies which are still strong against quantum compute. And I think that's going to be an industry we see in the next couple of years, which really sort of comes into itself. Because at the moment, our trust is in, okay, if I get a data breach, that's fine, because the data they stole was encrypted, therefore I'm safe. What we're seeing, there's now pretty strong evidence that a lot of the threat actors are just happy just harvesting encrypted data. Yeah, they can't decrypt it yet, but no, they're going to have vast stores of encrypted data harvested over the last couple of years. In a year's time, 2 years' time with quantum, they can suddenly break. And that's going to cause us a big problem.
And I just wanted to pick on that because I remember with who I was talking with someone. There's a very important thing, and I think there's going to be a sort of a battle is emerging, because one is quantum, obviously. The secondly is just normal compute GPU power that's running all of our AI. So obviously, it feels like it's probably similar sort of arms race to Cold War, because countries and organizations that have power to have a lot of compute or even quantum compute power will be advanced into doing some of these activities. And obviously there'll be countries or there'll be regions that will be a playground. Because I've been talking with, I think, Lisa Forte as well. She's been doing a lot of research, and it was really interesting because for example, like, when you look at geopolitical sort of wars that's happening. So, for example, there is a lot of threat actors that use South America as a playground to test their tactics and techniques, develop their malware and sort of, 0 days, and then obviously leverage that on the Western world. And sometimes, thinking, yeah, it's very far away. We shouldn't care about that. But that's the playground where they're developing stuff that they're going to attack us. So the more we can collaborate and work together, the more we can help each other. So how do you view that, computing power shift happening in the future?
It's always been an arms race. It doesn't matter how far you go back. There's always been a race between let's say the good guys and the bad guys. Yeah, and nothing's really changed. It's when we start looking at say just GPU power or quantum power, it's like both sides are going to have it. Both sides are going to get access to it. I think the time difference between the good guys and the bad guys is getting shrunk. Each generation, we can't rely on superior compute power to either protect us or defend us or not. So I think we've got to start as a community. We've got to start listening more to each other. We've got to start saying, actually, we can't just rely on say on encryption, because that's at some point going to be broken. So then we're gonna come up with a new algorithm which is quantum resistant or whatever phrase you want to use, or quantum proof, I think I've heard as well. But then there just be another arms race of that what we thought was safe today isn't safe tomorrow, and the cycle keeps going. So I think that a lot of the space in cybersecurity, we rely too much on technology and think technology is going to solve all the problems for us. I think there's a lot of training, a lot of human thought power, and a lot of human process which we need to wrap around the technology to give us the protection. We were talking just before we started, Marius, about the recent threat, the recent attack on a UK company that lost 25 million pounds from a deep fake video of the CEO and the MD having a conversation and asking the credit controller to move some money from one account to another. Technically, it was brilliant. You looked at the research and the effort and what they used to fake that Teams call was technically brilliant. But fundamentally, what they got the end user to do was to break a process.
Yep.
And a policy. And it could have been, just with it sounds silly, but a simple phone call after the Teams meeting to say, did you really want me to transfer 25 million? Yeah. It's like, and the MD said, what are you on about? I didn't say that, what Teams call, and I think that's where we need to get as a community, is understanding that it's not just technology which is going to protect us. It's everything. If you start looking at the regulations and DORA from the finance space, TSA from the communication space, a lot of the wording in that, if you look at the technical requests, they're I'm not going to say they're easy to solve, but they're or manage. But technically, we can do everything in those regulations pretty easily. Okay, and do it today. What they're really strengthening up is the processes around the technology and around the communications, just to make sure we don't fall victim to which is in essence a confidence scam, which have been around for thousands of years, just in a slightly different media.
Yeah, I think it's a very important thing to address, and I would like to hear your thoughts, but I think it's probably going to be similar. But some companies as well are saying, oh, there is this adversarial AI coming, and obviously for us only to defend, we need defensive AI. But I keep talking, and as you say, we had a .com boom, we have all kinds of technological advances that it was always spewing that FUD. But people forget, this technology, even if it's AI, it can't live by itself. It starts with having the right people, having the right processes, and only then you address technology. Some companies, and I think it's quite a recent thing where I think some companies are let's bypass people and processes and try and find technology that's going to do all three, and it usually fails very, very miserably.
Yeah, it's like I say, it's not. You have to have at the end of the day, we're humans, yeah, and we're still, regardless of what the statistics say, we're still cleverer than most other things on the planet. You know, and we just need to not get carried away with technology. You know, you can't have a conversation these days. You can't read the newspaper without AI being mentioned and machine learning. I was having an interesting conversation with one of our vendors who were very proud, you know, that they had AI in their system and great sort of thing. Yeah. And then when afterwards in the pub, when you're speaking to the actual engineers who invented it, you know, I think what one of their phrases was, yes, it is intelligent. It has the intelligence of a toddler. And I think, well, actually, technically, the intelligence of a toddler is brilliant. You know, that's mind-blowingly clever. Okay, but I still don't want a toddler running around looking after my network, you know. And you know, we get carried away with how clever AI is, and it is, you know, we all use it every day in our working life, which is another problem I've seen is companies putting things into ChatGPT to make a nice business report for them, and like, do you really want to put all that information into a public AI? You know, and they suddenly go, oh no, I shouldn't be doing that, should I? So AI is good and it is bad. You know, it is equally good and bad, and it's just how we use it, and what we need to make sure is the good guys use it more intelligently than the bad guys.
Yeah, and I think it's very important because I see as well, I talk with a lot of CISOs, and I think it's very important that how the CISO role is shaping, because CISO was always put in a corner and is being, you know, addressed only security. But I think the proliferation of technology and its expansion, CISO is becoming a real sort of, you know, as I say, we've been fighting for this boardroom position. We finally are getting towards there, but I think we need to grasp it and showcase our abilities, because as you say, you know, it's not only security is not only contained within IT, as you say, you know, we have now legal, HR, all of these departments are starting to use ChatGPT, whether it's any other AI tools, there is more data than we ever had. So how we can not only protect our organization, but I think, you know, one of the things that I've been working a lot, and I think sometimes CISOs forget that you can do, is improve business processes, improve security, how we do business development, how we can enhance our business development team to go through more RFIs, more RFPs, to essentially gain more business for the business. So, you know, you don't always need to be a cost center. And I think that's an important message as we expand our remit,
100%, 100%.
that can transform how we work. You know, wonderful conversation. I think we talked a lot about, you know, what does Red Helix do, how we do, you know, amazing events, and how, you know, what kind of services you are guys developing. I think to just to end, and it's important to highlight, you have obviously some amazing big clients and some smaller clients we mentioned. You know, how can organizations outside of just, you know, going on redhelix.com, how they can find out more about your services, how they can have a chat with someone if they have some specific cybersecurity problems that they're trying to solve, you know, how can they reach you guys?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you got all the contact details on our website. We're on LinkedIn and everything else. But I think the thing I always say to customers is we, on that, you know, the first contact, the first meeting, yeah, don't expect a solution. Yeah, expect lots of questions. Yeah, because in order for us to understand what your pain points are, we go through a lot of questions. And this, you know, again, what we always tell all my colleagues is be honest. Yeah, if the product we have doesn't fit the company's need, don't try and sell it them. Yeah, don't try and ram it down their throat, because you only do that once. We like to become that sort of trusted advisor. So, you know, I spend my time looking at products. I've got a bunch of guys underneath me who do the same. So we've done the hard work. You know, we found the technologies. We've sorted the wheat from the chaff. You know, the vaporware and everything else, which we all see. And then that's a useful set of information. It's a useful knowledge base. And if we can take that knowledge base to our customers and our prospective customers, we can, I'm not going to say short circuit, but we can save them a lot of time and effort
Yep.
to get to a solution to find their problem. You know, let's be honest, most of the time when a customer reaches out to us, it's because they've got a pain point. You know, they've got a problem they want to solve. So, as you know, I'm not going to say, you know, speed is of the essence, but you know, we're not just going to express train down a solution, but you know, we want to spend that time understanding what the needs are. You know, and because we deal with massive organizations and very small organizations, we're very used to tailoring sort of product and solutions and services to meet them. So you know, I'd say, you know, you got our website, phone numbers on the website. We're on LinkedIn and you know, the normal channels. Just come and speak to us. You know, because we're not very scary.
Brilliant. Well, once again, thank you very much for coming along, Rob. It's been a brilliant conversation, and obviously, you know, as Rob mentioned, you know, how to reach Red Helix. So thank you for coming along.
Enjoyed it. Cheers.
Cheers.